So, a portal to hell opened up in your small town. Now, this seems bad, I understand, but think about it. Portal to hell, full of monsters. Monsters brings adventurers. Adventurers, well, they need equipment, don't they? A sword, shield, potion, armor. Might be an opportunity here. You know an armor guy. Today on the Netflix Gaming Club, Moonlighter. Welcome to the Netflix Gaming Club. It's a book club for video games where for the next 9 weeks, we'll be playing the best games that are available right now for free on your phone with a Netflix subscription. I'm James Carlisle.
I'm Lindsay Burek.
And I'm Yasmin Thomas.
Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Wow, so good to be here.
And we're all glad you made it, Yasmin. Today on the Netflix Gaming Club, we're playing Moonlighter. It's a 2D roguelike dungeon crawler / management sim developed by Digital Sun, originally released in 2018 for all contemporary consoles. It was then listed on the App Store and on the Android marketplace. It was then mysteriously delisted in the early 2020s from the mobile marketplaces, and then was re-released as a Netflix game. I almost said as a Netflix original in May 2022. Moonlighter is 2 games, bolted together. On the one hand, it's a roguelike dungeon crawler in the vein of Binding of Isaac, in which you fight monsters and collect loot. And then on the other hand, it's a management sim where you run a little item shop in a town and you sell the same items that you collect from the dungeon crawling side of the game. The game is played from a 2D top-down perspective. It's got a pixel art style, but it's super detailed for a pixel game. And really colorful, and it seems really realistic. What did you guys think of the graphics, the visuals of Moonlighter?
So on one hand, pixel art, just inherently you lose some of the detail that you get with other art styles. But I found that didn't hinder this game at all, because everything was so beautifully detailed, as much as you can get with pixel art. I never found that it was hard to tell what things were or what your enemies were that you were facing, who each have their own little attack patterns and stuff. You could always tell what you were up against. So I feel like the pixel art didn't hold it back at all, and it really just added to the charm of it.
Yeah, it really seemed more like an art style decision more than an actual Sometimes when a game is pixely like this, it can be kind of a conservative, a budget choice. You know how to keep all the assets.
This was full intention.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's so
also,
fully realized.
So interesting to me that you guys are like, oh, you lose detail with pixel art. Technically, sure you do, but I feel like every pixel game I've played, there's more character almost to the illustration. So I feel like it makes up for it, or even I get more out of it than I would something actually realistically rendered.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I love pixel art. It's one of my favorite game art styles, but I find that it's very easy to do it poorly. And I don't think this game did it poorly. I think it did a good job with it.
It did so well.
I kind of fell into a rabbit hole of trying to determine how many bits this pixel art, is this this is definitely not 8-bit. It seems better than 16-bit. I don't know. Anyway.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
I rest my case.
So as we said, the gameplay is kind of split between these two very different games.
But they feed into each other. It's an Ouroboros almost of, well, to finance your dungeon shit, you need to make money, so you need to be in the store. But you can only make money if you've done stuff in the dungeon to get things to sell in the store. But to do that, you have to, it just keeps playing into itself forever and ever.
Yeah, I mean, so this game I'd call the overarching genre a roguelite. And what makes we don't need to get too into this, but what makes a roguelite different than a roguelike is the ability to upgrade your character or improve your abilities before you start the next run.
Yeah.
Right? Classic examples are Hades or things like that, where you're just upgrading your attack power or whatever. This game allows you to buy new weapons and armor and enhance your armor and add elemental abilities to your weapon. It's a very deep upgrade tree, but if you want to get stronger, you have to work on the management sim side of the game. Everything costs money, and the only way to make money is in the shop. So it really provides a good kind of way of breaking up the pace. Roguelikes get frustrating.
Yes.
We should define a roguelike. This is our first roguelike, the first of many, I think, on the service. Do either of you guys know what a roguelike is? Do you guys have like a definition for it?
Not like a formal definition, but it's kind of like, I suppose it doesn't have to be a dungeon crawler game, but it often
Usually
is.
Yep.
Where you go in with your character and you fight until you die, basically, and you start over and you take the information that you've learned from doing your first run and apply it to your second run to get a little further and be a little better at the game each time. And you just keep doing that until you can progress through the level or the dungeon or what have you.
Yeah, I think good examples of this are like Spelunky or FTL or, like we said, Binding of Isaac. The roguelike genre is one in which you're presented with a very difficult, like challenging, almost arcade style, like dungeon crawler. And the most important thing is it's randomly generated and you're expected to die. So procedurally generated, not randomly generated. Huge difference. We'll get into that. So every time you die, you start again from the first level, and then it procedurally generates a new like set of levels for you. And you bring in your experience with you and your understanding of the systems, and eventually you understand the systems well enough that you can overcome the dungeon and the structure of it. Like we said, this is a roguelite, so we have the upgrade mechanics, so that kind of gives both the player and the developer a break, right? Because on the one hand, like, the player doesn't have to think that much. They can just get their numbers up and then be better against the enemies. And the developer doesn't have to design a, like, Byzantine like math problem of a video game in which you have to really like get into it and understand it and really like become wise to
you
the
don't
ways
have
it
to
tries
become dataless in order to
exactly. You can just enjoy the feeling of warmth as your wings melt off you over and over and over again. But because this game is kind of two games, which side of the game would you guys like to talk about first, the shopkeeping or the dungeon crawling?
I mean, arguably, it starts you off with the dungeon crawling, so we could also start ourselves.
That's a good way to do it. So maybe we could go back all the way to the tutorial, which is a dungeon crawling tutorial, and start with like the first couple minutes of this game, which I played many times. We'll get to that at the end.
I have things to say about the tutorial.
Yeah, me too. Tell me.
Okay, so normally I like a tutorial that doesn't over-explain and has like so much text that you're just overwhelmed and but this one I think went a little bit too far in the other direction where it didn't really explain anything enough. Like it gives you these images on signboards to get you through the tutorials to show you like that you need to swipe to roll across a gap in the floor or things like that.
And the tutorial is a set dungeon in which there is one challenge or one little gameplay mechanic you need to learn in order to get out of the room you're in.
That's
right?
correct.
One of the rooms, for example, you have to use your dodge roll to dodge through an enemy to get out.
So I found it frustrating because the pictures weren't super clear. It wasn't too hard to figure out what you had to do, but it wasn't super clear. And I also several times clicked on the signboards by accident, and it would make you wait a really long time to be able to click out of them, which I didn't like. And I found that I know that there's an auto attack feature in the game where it automatically targets the enemies.
Talk about that, yes.
But it didn't show you how to like face the enemy that you're trying to target because I kept like, I don't know, I just had some difficulty figuring out stuff if I wanted to do things manually, and maybe I'm just stupid, who knows, but I don't know, it just felt like not my favorite tutorial ever.
I will say I appreciated that you could kind of run through it. Like, you could just not do what it asked you to do and just go to the next room and go to the next room and go to the next room and just kind of like get it out of the way. Again, I had to do it like 4 times. So
so curious about this
yeah,
diversion.
I guess there's no reason to bury the lead. I actually experienced a kind of game-breaking bug with Moonlighter. I don't know what it is, and nobody else who I've spoken to personally has had this issue. Again, I'm playing on iOS. I'm playing on both my iPhone and my iPad mini. This game doesn't have cloud saves. So say that first. So I experienced a bug where the game would go to the loading screen. You know that loading screen with like the blue line in the middle of it, and then it opens up and says Moonlighter? I would get the blue line, and then that's it. It would just like hang on that, and that would just be it, and it just would never move past that, and there was no way to fix it. Like I shouldn't say there's no way to fix it. What you can do is you can delete and reinstall the game.
But
However,
then all your progress.
there's no cloud saves. Yeah. So
brutal.
I loved this game so much that after 2
you
days,
did the tutorial 4 times, so clearly you loved this game.
Well, and then I just bought it on Switch.
So
So I actually played this game on Switch, which, sorry, I don't feel great about that, but I
betraying the laws of the podcast.
Yeah, it sucks because I really liked the touch controls. I thought as a mobile game, this game
it's fantastic.
worked so well. What kind of controls did you guys use? Did you guys use touch dungeon crawling or like virtual thumbstick?
I used the touch control.
Hell
Like
yeah.
I found it the only thing that I didn't like about that control system was the little shop that sells potions and enchantments. Whenever I'd click that shop to get my character to walk over there, it would get stuck. He'd get stuck on the wall trying to get over them.
The pathing definitely needed a bit of work.
Yeah.
I noticed
But that's
that too.
like almost charming in itself. Like I was like, I'm playing a pixel art dungeon game that feels like when I was a kid, and if I click wrong, I get my character's walking animation just stays in one place for a little while. Like I was very
You're
nostalgic.
just shooting the thing against the wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what games does this remind you of, Yasmin?
Most of the problem is that so my parents were very like, video games will rot your brains.
We're that age.
Like we argued our way into, a Game Boy and a DS down the line, but it took arguing. And it took like a used Game Boy Advance from the Value Village type beat. So before we managed to upgrade to that, my brother's best friend in our neighborhood, I should clarify, I think they had many best friends. I don't know. I don't understand younger siblings. But their best friend in our neighborhood lived across the street, and his parents were in the middle of a divorce, and they bought him every game he wanted and every gaming system he wanted. So I would piggyback on the social life. Literally, I was like, Mom, Dad, why can't you? Not things you should say to your parents as a child. Also, like, hot tip for everyone. Don't come home and say, Mom, Dad, why can't you get a divorce? Doesn't work very well for you, I can attest. But I would piggyback on the social lives of children 2 years younger than me and go across the street and sit on the floor and watch this kid play whatever video games he had. I did like get a turn eventually. Like I played Pokemon Stadium and shit in his basement, Habbo Hotel, really throwing it back. But everything I can think of is stuff that I watched him play and do not know the goddamn name of. All of that tangent is for the fact that someone, I mean, it's a podcast. I shouldn't probably name drop him, but if he's listening to this somehow, please reach out and tell me which video games you were playing in your basement, because I would really love to know. I think about them still.
Man, grandma's basements are such a primordial soup for like video games. That's where my video game knowledge like started. Like my grandmother had this like Nintendo. I don't know why the hell my grandmother had a Nintendo, because she was like, I
was about to say, grandmas with Nintendos is a genre I'd never considered.
Was like 80, and she had a Nintendo in her basement, and I played Mario 3 with my cousins.
She bought it for you guys
the cousins
then.
thing too.
Anyway, this is getting so far off topic.
Speaking of other games,
yes.
I really liked the Zelda reference in it when you get your first weapon. That was really cute.
Oh man, I'm so cynical. I was like, oh god, we're doing the it's dangerous to go alone thing again. Like, come on, man. I don't know. I hated your weird grandfather in this game. I wish he would leave me alone. He's the only guy with dialogue, and he's got so much.
There's other guys with dialogue.
Everybody else talks.
Yeah, but nobody else. You don't
them.
have to talk to anybody else. This guy will like interrupt you, and he's like jealous, and he's like very discouraging. He's like, listen, don't go into the dungeon. And when you beat the first of, there's like 4 mini dungeons, right? In this game, there's a progression to beat the final boss of each of the 4 dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
If you beat one of the bosses, he comes up to you and goes, "Oh, I heard you beat the boss. Listen, we're all proud of you, but really just mind the shop. Like, don't do this.
Stop doing this."
And can you focus on your fucking day job for a second? Come on, kid.
He wants his retirement. I understand.
He's like, my pension depends on the success.
Why can't he work in the shop? Why don't I have to work in the shop?
He's not doing anything all day. I did have that question myself, like not in a mean way, because I was like, oh, my grandpa who sits by the fireplace and tells me like weird shit I don't need to know.
Was he your grandpa? I thought he was like, he knew your grandpa or something.
Where
he was
does
like
he
friends
live?
with
He's
your
grandpa
or something.
adjacent.
Yeah,
and,
fair enough.
So who's old Pete?
Oh,
you're
crazy
Will.
guy. Old Pete's a crazy guy. Like, he's just the village crazy guy. I mean, he's dead by this point, but he
owned Moonlighter before you.
You find his
bones.
body.
That was really fun for me.
There's a lot of bones.
This game was a lot of fun for me.
Mm-hmm. I liked that if you smash the skeletons, you sometimes get like health potions and stuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty handy.
Which I was like, I'm sure the skeletons would have appreciated the health potions more than I do, but
I mean, they clearly didn't use them.
Yeah, that's weird.
They could have used them.
Why do the dead people have health potions? I never thought about that. Okay, let's get back to the structure of the dungeon crawling side of the game. The dungeon you're exploring is 4 dungeons, each with an ultimate boss. And each of the 4 is like a different world. It's a different like theme
Different
zone.
atmosphere.
Yeah, I think the first one is like the forest.
First one's Golem.
First one's the
one.
Golem, right? So it's like a mine, right? Is that
Yeah, because
Yeah.
golems are stone. I mean, golems are a lot of things that this game is not unpacking. But
Although you do run into like the occasional forest room.
Right. So that's like a room from the. It's cool. Every now and then, this game will give you a preview of the next world.
Mhm.
Like so in the Golem world, call it Golem. It seemed like a mine to me. I called it a mine. I was thinking about
Golem
Spelunky a lot.
dungeon. They said so.
So first you have the Golem world, and then you have the forest world, and then it's the desert world and the tech world. And I think they said there's like a 5th. There's like maybe once you beat all 4, there's like a 5th like super hard dungeon. I don't know. I didn't get that far. Sorry guys. Each of the 4 worlds is separated into 3 levels, each with their own like a mini boss, then a boss with kind of more abilities, and then the final boss, who's the other 2 are kind of training you for. And the ultimate goal of the game is to beat all 4 bosses and then open some big gate, and then I don't know. Something will happen. The game will end. Like, it's not going to be good. Like, you are not going to get, like, $100,000. I'm sorry. It's just going to be the end of the game.
Might feel like $100,000 though. You don't know.
So you guys use the touch combat. I wish I could have. I really liked it. The game was playing itself. It was so
Practically,
nice.
yeah. It's fantastic.
It honestly, I felt that the touch combat really supported the management sim
yes.
element of the game. Like, it made the game kind of a pretty chill management sim, if you wanted it to be. Once I switched to Switch, there's no touch combat on Switch, so I had to really get involved in the combat, and this is a challenging game.
Did it not have auto combat anymore in the Switch one?
No, the Switch, I think it was an early version.
Mm.
Or if it did, I didn't know it. Maybe I could have tried tapping the screen, but I never had to switch the screen. But I found the combat, like, when I actually had to do it myself, it was difficult
Yes.
and, like, meaty. It's a good combat system.
Yeah. Which is great for them, but as somebody who sucks at that stuff, the auto combat was a blessing, I tell you this
Yeah.
now.
It's a numbers game.
I did find myself kind of being like half active with the combat.
Cool.
I would pick a target because it auto points to somebody,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's not who you want to be fucking up first.
Mhm.
So
For me, what I would do is like originally with the sword and shield, I would use the shield for this, but later on when I switched weapons, I was using the dodge roll to do this.
Yeah.
But like enemies would be like attacking you in sequences and stuff, so I'd be letting the auto attack happen, but I'd be like dodge rolling out of the way to not get hit by things.
Same. I did that too. I loved that combat. That felt like the best mobile RPG combat ever because it's there. Like, you
Mhm.
can get in there with your shield and your sword, and you can be blocking and you can be hitting and you can be heavy attacking and whatever. But just having the character auto attack and the character keeping itself kind of engaged with the enemy, and then you're just choosing when to dodge. Great.
Yeah.
Great. That felt like the future.
not having to
Mhm.
balance both and just getting to like focus on the evasion side to maximize the attack side was really, yeah.
Mhm.
But what was so cool about the dungeon crawling, and I don't know, what was so confident about it, what you can do when you have the developer. So I kind of was cheeky about this earlier. What happened was the developer ported this game from consoles to mobile themselves and then delisted I'm guessing after they got the deal with Netflix. But because this is a developer port, or at least the developer was in control of the mobile port of this game, it is so confident.
100%.
There is such a deep combat system that they just throw out the window, but it's there for you too if you
Mhm.
want to use it. Like, I can't be effusive enough in my praise of like RPG combat. Like, this is so Dark Souls influenced, this combat. Like, it totally follows the Dark Souls pattern in that there's an attack, a heavy attack, a block, an iframe, invincibility roll, right? That we were talking about, the dodge roll.
Mhm.
And I think there's a parry with the shield. I think if you time it right, you'll stun the enemy. I'm not 100% on that, but that shines so much.
Mhm.
Yes.
The one other element we should say about before we move on to the other side of the game is that, unlike other roguelike games, this game gives you a little escape hatch. It gives you an item, a pendant, which you can spend in-game currency on to then warp back, like in Diablo, to the town and go
Yeah.
on sell your items. Later in the game, I know you don't know this, Wolfie, because I saw you playing earlier, you get an upgraded version of the pendant, which creates a two-way portal. So you can
Oh.
go to your shop and then go back
Ooh,
Oh my
cool.
God.
and not lose your progress.
All right, that's
That's handy.
fantastic. The
Very
pendant
cool.
in general was great because, as we were describing, like roguelike versus roguelite earlier, you go through the dungeon, you die, you get out. I needed those fucking items to finance my shit.
Yeah.
When they give you the pendant and you have enough money and you can get a bunch of items, accidentally end up at a boss too strong for you and port the hell out of there and sell all your stuff, like that This game has so much in general, but that for me, as somebody who hated games like that a little bit when I was younger, because you just keep dying and you keep dying and you can't build the resources that you want, like, fantastic ad, truly.
So,
and also made me very motivated to make money, because I was like, if I'm going to have to spend like 200 gold coins every time I need to get out of a sticky situation, like I gotta be rich.
Well, it starts being a calculation. It starts being like, do I have $200 worth of equipment to sell on me? Okay. But speaking of making money, let's talk about the other half of this game. The store management sim. I don't think it's as deep as the dungeon crawling, but let's talk about running your little shop, Moonlighter.
I will say, like, we've said a few things about the dungeon. I agree with all of it. I love running a shop. I love running a little shop. It was a little puzzle also, because the whole premise of it is you have your goods. First of all, figuring out how to stock just one item instead of all four that you have in your inventory is like a puzzle of its own, I will say. Took me a minute to figure that out. But once you have it, you put the item in your store. It lets you set the price to anything.
Anything you want.
Anything you want. You're like, great, I'm going to make so much money. It turns out people have opinions. So the biggest like strategy part of this for me was genuinely just notching something down, like one coin, seeing what the highest I could sell something at was versus like what made people the happiest, all of that. Like, it was such a fun puzzle to figure out.
Yeah, I did it the same way. Like I would inflate the price more than what I thought it was worth, and then just slowly inch it down until people wanted to buy it.
So there's a trick. The game gives you a book, right?
Yes, I was religious with filling that
me
out.
too.
And so what the book is, and this is where the game, this is becoming a segment on the show. This is where the game clicked for me, was that when I got the book, and it just was a graph, and the graph is facial expression to price point.
Hell
and
yeah.
there's just like 4. There's like angry, there's a little angry, there's happy, and then there's I just got the best deal of my entire life face.
Yes.
And you set the price point and you see like where the customers
on the
line
spectrum.
up.
Yep.
Yeah.
If the price is way too high, like insane, they just get mad at you and leave. If it's like a little too high, they'll buy it angrily, and then you won't be able to charge that much for the product for a while. The product will become unpopular. That's another, that's another dimension to this, is that the product has 3 levels of popularity: low, middle, and high. For high, you can charge extra, about 20%.
Okay. I didn't know that
25%.
them buying it like begrudgingly was what
lowering
made
the
them.
popularity.
I didn't clue into that.
But it's great because once your price points are set well, a good price point makes the product popular. So you have the good price point, and then you can just raise everything by 25%. So, as I said, the game clicked for me when I got the book, the price book, because suddenly you have data.
Yes.
Now this is a data-driven game. And now we can really optimize, we can really Walmart the hell out of our little economy here.
It made me want to like play the slots or stocks or something. Like, I was like, how do I go and apply this knowledge in the real world?
It made me resent the dungeon crawling because I'd run out of items. It's like,
exactly. And you're like, oh,
back
I
to
have
the
to
dungeon.
go fight some monsters to stock up my little shop. Like,
can't
why
I get a guy for this?
Did you guys both prefer the shop running?
No, I think the dungeon... What makes this game special is the combination of both. And the way that the two kind of break up each other's loops. And once you've been optimizing prices for 2 hours, you can then go dungeon crawl for a while and vice versa. That said, the dungeon crawling is so good.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there was a period there in the late 2010s when roguelikes were super, super, super popular, and you just had another one coming out like every week, and everybody was iterating on Binding of Isaac specifically, which this game very much does. You had games like Enter the Gungeon, Hades.
Enter the Gungeon?
Oh, Enter the Gungeon was a gun-themed roguelike where you play as a bullet, and all the enemies are bullets, and there's just like 10,000 different guns in the game. It's kind of like the Borderlands thing where it's just like we're randomly generating guns, and there are a billion different kinds, and they all have like crazy... Yeah, it's fun. It was a fun game. Anyway, this was a very popular genre, and that's why I hadn't played Moonlighter before, is because I was so burnt out, I just like couldn't do another...
You got oversaturated.
Yeah. But this game, the dungeon crawling is so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. And I think it's I think the dungeon crawling got a bit more love than...
I do think it got more... It's deeper than the shopkeeping.
Yeah.
But also, in fairness, there's only so deep you can make shopkeeping.
I don't know.
I will say...
I think they did a good job at making it like as deep as you want in a game like this. Oh, and for the record, I felt about the dungeon crawling portion that I want to play this. And for the shopkeeping portion, I have to play this. I have to do this in order to be able to continue having fun with my dungeon crawling.
Yeah, and you do. Like, you really can't play one without the other. You definitely hit a numerical wall in terms of how much damage you're doing and how much health the enemies have if you
Mhm.
don't start upgrading your weapons.
Yeah.
Right?
Which I think they did, like, that's probably the best part for me. Just like, again, I think I said earlier, like Ouroboros, but like it really is just this game feeding into itself in a really beautiful way, over and over. I will say, when you mentioned the book, like the best part of the shopkeeping for me was the book, because as somebody who like gets really into kind of the side puzzle things in games a lot, I had like notebooks as a kid where I would write down by hand like
Cool.
different stuff I'd figured out.
Same.
This game just did it for me. I was like, oh my god, I don't have to bust out the notebook for this.
It's
love
so convenient.
a game with a data tracker.
It's
I love a game
so
with a data tracker.
sexy. Like, I'm remembering like writing down all of my like little Pokemon hacks in my notebook at school, all of that kind of stuff.
my gosh,
This was
yes.
fantastic.
I remember writing down like all this EV training stuff for my
Exactly,
Pokemon and like
exactly. And this
and
game
you
just
don't have
gives it
to.
to you.
it's just there
wholesale?
for you. As soon as you sell something at a specific price, depending on how guys react to it, it's in your book as like they like this. It's a happy thing.
I did also really like just like the little animations of the faces.
Yeah.
Because it starts out at totally neutral, right? So the first impression you get is like, drum roll please kind of thing. And then either they're having
Yeah,
a good
there's, like, a
day
little
or they're
minute.
like, I'ma fucking kill you and rob your store. And
Well,
frankly,
my
I
God.
did charge them an amount that would have justified that.
well,
I
let's
was-
talk about some more shop mechanics.
Yeah.
Speaking of robbing your store.
I was so surprised when someone tried to rob me the first time. I was like, oh my gosh. And I went to go click on the guy to see if I could stop him. And they get in this little tussle,
yeah,
like
you gotta
a
dodge
little
into
fight.
him.
Oh, you don't have to dodge into them. You just have to tap on them. Maybe
Oh,
it's different
on
for
the
Switch, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did not get robbed. I think possibly that was just the balance that I had going. Like, I very
Oh, your
much
customers
did like
just loved you so much, no one would
oh no,
rob you?
I just mean like every day I was running the store, every night I was in the dungeon.
Mhm.
Like, I alternated
Well,
by the day-night cycle that the game gave me. So I
Did
wasn't
you
doing one
upgrade?
for either like a long time. I did upgrade my stuff,
okay.
but it took me longer because I was like, I am adhering to like the circadian rhythm that this game
Yeah,
has
I
given
mean,
me.
I did also, but I didn't start getting robbed until I upgraded my store to the
Yeah,
first
I had
level.
shop level
Oh,
2,
okay, yes,
where
I
started
get
getting
you.
robbed. You know, when people walk into your shop as a little description of like what
Yeah.
kind of guy they are they an adventurer that wants equipment, or are they just some guy? Are they rich? Or
I
are
think that also started
That
when you
starts, like, level
upgrade the
2 or 3,
start
yeah.
the shop.
or sometimes someone will come in and you just get a bad vibe. Like they walk in
Mm.
the door and they have like a, I'm gonna rob you. And you get 1 second of that and you're either paying attention or you're not.
Yep.
And then if they have that I'm gonna rob you, they are totally gonna take something off your shelf or just take money out of your cash register and dip. And like you can lose a lot of money that way because they just pick up stuff,
Yeah.
whatever. And then you have to run over them and catch them before they get to the door. So what happens is if someone comes into your shop and you see, oh, they're gonna rob me, then naturally, at least what I would do is I would take my little guy and I'd stand between the door and them and I'm just watching them and they know I'm watching them and they don't try shit if they know you're watching them.
Ooh.
Yeah, but they will. So you just try and like keep an eye on them and try and close the store before they steal some shit. Other side of the spectrum is that sometimes a guy will walk in and they'll just flash an icon of like a monocle and a mustache and a top hat.
Oh yeah, they'll be a rich guy.
And so what would you do when you saw a rich guy walk into your shop?
So that only happened to me once so far. And what happened was I immediately went over to my table to raise my prices.
Yep.
But by the time, like, I raised my price because I only had one item left out there at the time because I had already sold everything else that I was trying to sell. And when I clicked out of it, he was already gone. So I didn't get the chance to see what
No.
happened.
Oh, you know what? He saw you doing that price inflation and he was
Yeah, he
like,
didn't
this
want any of
store
that."
isn't a reputable business place.
In later upgrades of the shop, you get these like display cases where you can put like super expensive stuff. And I don't know what that's supposed to do. I didn't really understand what the images meant. I think you can put like stuff and overprice it and that will make it popular or bring rich people into your shop. I don't know. One of the other upgrades you get for the shop is that you start being able to decorate it and you can add items that will put bonuses on your shop. Like you get more rich people or patrons will tip you like 10%. Or one is that your patrons will just move faster. Like
Oh,
they-
thank God. They're so
Right?
slow with the browsing.
I know.
And I'm like, I relate. I love to
Yeah.
pick everything up and look at it. But one of us is running a business here. And I have a dungeon to get back to. I have monsters to slay.
Wait, so what did happen if you change your prices for the rich people when they come in?
I don't
Did
know. I
they-
assume you make more money.
Okay, fair.
What the rich person has a custom face for when they look at your items. Like if you overcharge a rich person, their reaction is just "I'm rich" and they buy it.
Stop.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so fucking good.
It's so good. And honestly, that part reminded me more than anything of working retail jobs. Like, I remember when I used to sell cheese, we'd have like big, giant, like full wheels of, like, we sold cheese by the slice or by like, you cut you cut like a little wedge, right? But every now and then there'd be some like out of towner who would come in and would have that like I'm on vacation walk, and it'd be big, and they'd have their family and have that I'm on vacation voice where they're, hello, what do you sell here? And then
Greetings, shopkeeper.
and then they would buy like $1,000 wheel of cheese. Well, okay, maybe not 1,000. Well, yeah,
I was
going
gonna
to
say cheese gets pricey.
but they just buy like, you know, a year and a half worth of cheese like on a wheel. They'd buy a wheel like you're a monk and it's you're living in Sweden or whatever. And like you realize after that happens a couple times that like, oh, they're just doing that because that's just what you do. It's like I buy that and I feel good. So that just felt so real. That felt so
you
real.
met the cheese monks all over again.
Okay, so now let's talk about some strategies. What kind of goals did you guys use to pull you along through the game? Like, how would you strategize a play session? Would you be like, I want to get this upgrade, or I want to get to the next level of the dungeon? What kind of goals did you have for yourselves?
For me, it was like, I want to get further in the dungeon, but I also wouldn't want to keep going if I already had a full inventory and I couldn't carry anymore. So for me, it was kind of like a little bit of progressing further in the dungeon, a little bit of trying to fill up my inventory and go back and then and keep the things that would either help me with upgrades or sell the things that would help me pay for upgrades.
Right.
But my ultimate goal, I suppose, was just to try to get further and further in the dungeon portion of the game.
How about you, Yasmin?
Definitely like wanted to upgrade my stuff, wanted to progress in the dungeon, but I think my biggest thing is once they gave me that book, I was like, I'm filling this shit out.
Oh, cool.
Back to front. My goal every time I went into the dungeon was to get something I didn't already have.
So there's a fun mechanic in this game, as with a lot of games with loot, where you can sell everything and items have very high values, but there's also upgrades. And so sometimes, you know, you can screw yourself over by selling a bunch of stuff because it's very like valuable, but then realizing, oh, I needed all that to upgrade my sword.
Yeah.
So how did you guys deal with that? Did you stockpile items? Did you have like a rule for that? Or would you just sell everything and then when you wanted something, you'd stop selling it?
I would stockpile things. Well, at first I didn't know what I actually would
I was
need for
going
the
to say
upgrades.
it took a while.
So I would just sell stuff and then be like, oh, I needed those. Whoops. And then I'd go back into the dungeons and I'd stockpile the items that I knew I was going to need and keep them in the chests in my house and then sell all the other things like the golem cores and the like crystal things and just stuff that I wasn't sure that I would need or haven't needed so far yet, I guess. But in general, I would try to stockpile the things that I knew were useful for upgrades and things like that.
I think the thing that helped for me with that, though, was like, I don't know what's important, so I can just sell everything. And I know that this dungeon regenerates itself each time, and I can find there's always more. There's never, the dungeon itself was not a finite resource. So once I figured out I needed something, it wasn't like, oh shit, I have to go like hunt down my customers and get it back. It was just, okay, I'm going to grind a little bit more and get enough.
The dungeon crawling roguelike aspect of this game is so deep and fully realized, way deeper and more fully realized than one you'd expect on mobile, and two you'd expect in a game that does like that's only half
more
the
than one
experience.
thing. Yeah.
It's the old my father used to always tell me about this. My father used to always tell me that he didn't like dinner theater because they don't do either
I hate
well.
that joke.
You know that joke? Yeah. And I think about that all the time with these kind of games where it's like, well, you manage a shop and you do a dungeon. Like I hear that and I think, well, all right, one of these is going to be good.
Possibly,
you know, but damn if they don't commit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I realized that they were really committing to the dungeon crawling when I noticed that there's like a Binding of Isaac level.
Which I also want to clarify for listeners. We keep referencing Binding of Isaac. We're talking mechanics. This game is like cute and beautiful. And like every time we've said it, I feel like I have to add like, disclaimer, this will not make you feel that way. Also, it doesn't look like that.
It's not upsetting
like,
and full of
It's not
tears
upsetting.
and
It's not
human waste.
depressing looking. Like
It's not cruel.
Just
Anyway.
just know this going forward.
Binding of Isaac is not, and probably will never be on Netflix. So,
Yeah, I think we're safe.
and listen, that is a fantastic video game. But I noticed that they really committed to the fighting the game aspect of Binding of Isaac, of the I'm going to learn how these maps are generated and I'm going to have an optimized path through these dungeons by understanding the way the layouts work. Like we said, it's not randomly generated. There are patterns to these dungeons. There are ways you can figure out. The game even tells you, hey, do you notice that the healing room, there's a healing room, there's a big pool of water.
God bless that healing, that sauna, that spa.
There's one point where you find a sign that says, hey, do you notice that the spa is always close to the end boss? I wonder what other secrets there are like that. So I'll just open it up to you guys. What kind of strategies and secrets and patterns did you notice in the dungeon?
I'm not very good at like pattern recognition, so I'm not sure I noticed like too much of that kind of situation. Besides that, there would be like a mini boss at the end of a level when it was time to progress to the next floor. But I did find a secret, which is that sometimes I would go into a room and the gaps on the ground, there would be a spot. Yes, the pit. There would be a spot that would sparkle. And I was like, ooh, let's fall through the hole in the ground and see what's down there. And so I did. And there were nice things down there.
That was such a moment of like setting intentions for the game where it's like, yeah, some holes you want to fall in. How about you, Yasmin?
I was really interested in the dungeon for the lore. Like, you get the little scrolls. As you say, you get to find out, like, why is this healing pit in this place all the time? Makes you think, doesn't it? Of little scrolls, of little tidbits. But I found on, like, my third crawl, Crazy Pete's resting place.
Okay.
So, like, it's a campsite that's been torn apart and it's all bones and there's, like, a boss there and you defeat him. And then you find Crazy Pete's notebook.
Okay.
Which is, like, this long, like... I mean, Crazy Pete. He was going insane in them there hills. So, like, a long manifesto rant thing, but, like, he talks about how, like, the dungeon keeps generating and how he doesn't know what's coming around at every turn, but he gives you kind of clues to, like, how that works and stuff like that. Like, I got that in, like, the third go-round. So it's not that I was less invested, but I was kind of like, damn, we've already hit maximum skeleton. Like, what more can these golems show me?
So, like we said, this game has Dark Souls inspired combat and really commits to that, to the point where it has the full Dark Souls gamut of weapon selection and then the upgrade trees that go one pure stats, pure damage, and another with the elemental effects with less damage. What weapons did you guys prefer? What were you guys' favorite weapons to use? Because you really can. You can have a spear, you can have like a big claymore, a sword and shield. You can find like a bow and arrow. You can find all kinds of stuff. What did you guys? What did you main? How did you fight these guys?
Well, I'm not going to brag, but I think I found the ultimate combination of weapons.
Okay.
Please brag.
I used the glove and the bow.
Cool.
And I'll tell you why. I used the glove because to me it seemed like the fastest weapon. And it had very high DPS, and the bow was kind of like the opposite of that. It was a long distance weapon. It was slower. It was weaker, but it kept you safe. So when you were exposed while you were punching people or clawing them or whatever the gloves do, I'm not quite sure. You could back up and start shooting them with the bow if they were like a close range combat enemy. So I think it was a really good combination to do with the two of them together. And I didn't get too far into the upgrades, but my plan was to upgrade the bows with the main like power upgrades, because it was a weaker weapon in the first place. So I wanted the raw power for the bow. And then for the gloves, I upgraded them the element upgrade tree.
That's interesting. And I know you were asking me at one point, like, what would I recommend? I think I recommended backwards. I didn't realize there was a bow involved. Because what I would do is I'd get the elemental on the bow and then just go into a room and like elemental damage, elemental damage, elemental damage, elemental damage, everybody in the rooms. They're all got like ticking down with their poison or whatever, and then choose one guy and like just mess him up with the gloves.
Beat him to shit.
That would also not be a bad strategy. Maybe I'll try that next time.
I didn't use the bow or the glove, so I'm completely like, not an expert.
What did you use?
I used a big old claymore, just damage maxed out.
Sexy.
Yeah. Just for that huge swipe. And the claymore was great because it has that 1, 2, 3 punch. Like the first hit takes a minute and is pretty good. Second hit is faster after that. Third hit is fast too, and then there's like double damage. So like I love the claymore and had that huge arc. And then on the other hand,
pretty.
Yeah. And then on the other hand, I had the just the sword and shield, just for block.
Did you ever try to do the thing where this is something that I read online? You could do like the first 2 hits of a weapon and then swap out the weapon, and it would be the third hit of the second weapon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I didn't really experiment with that too much, so I didn't really try it very much, but apparently that's something you can do.
The Moonlighter forums sound like they go crazy, to be honest.
This game is deep. Like, this is...
Oh, I agree. But if people are working out, like, combo weapon situations where if you sub it out, you get the third attack from this, I'm like, I think I need to devote about 70 hours more to this game before I have anything worth saying about it.
So, Yasmin, what weapons did you pick?
Really liked the Claymore. Kind of used the spear a lot out of, like, cowardice initially. Just, like...
Nothing cowardly about being a spear person.
Back. Stay away from me. No, I liked the reach of it.
Yeah,
I would say.
Absolutely.
And like obviously enjoy a good shield, enjoy shielding, enjoy again cowardice, but mostly just like you have healing potions, but it is such a hassle. I didn't want to like I would go in a room, fight some people. If I noticed I was getting low, like try and run out and go back to the healing pond. Like I was just trying to maximize my time in there, right?
Yeah, my old Binding of Isaac's instincts were coming back, where like, for example, I remember that like, you never use a health potion after an encounter. You always use the health potion at the beginning of the next encounter, because you might walk into a room that has a healing
room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and once you
I'm super conservative. I'm like, oh, I have a potion, smack. Like
100%. And that's and you want to, right? But like just in case, you always obviously go back to the health pool after you kill the boss. My old Binding of Isaac instinct really screwed me over, which was once you find the boss, go the other way and fill out the whole rest of the map, get everybody, and then go find the boss. This game wants you to be efficient. You only have 20 slots in your inventory, and that never gets upgraded.
No,
so,
which drove me bonkers.
Insane. Oh my god.
But that's where the pendant really came in. Like, I would hit like 19, and I'd be
pendant?
like, I'm getting the fuck home. I need to be out of here. I need to restock my shop. That 20 item slot really, I think that's the only thing. Well, okay. Resource management. The game's doing it to me for a reason. I respect all of that. I wanted to go on longer dungeon shopping sprees. That's how I'm phrasing this, and that is the only thing. And genuinely, I'm like, that is the only thing I would change about this game.
Well, I think being able to get that upgraded pendant later, where you can jump back into the dungeon where you left off, will help with that.
But like, I just wanted to be able to go around with my little like imaginary magical shopping cart and spend some serious time beating people up and taking their, golem cores and their blood and stuff.
This is gonna be fun. What were your guys' favorite pets?
Sorry, favorite what?
Pets?
Pets.
Yeah. So.
You get pets?
So. If you...
Are you doing this just to flex on us?
If you kill an enemy enough times, like a type of enemy,
I could have gotten a slime?
You get an egg. And then that egg goes in your farm. And then...
Stop.
And if
Hang on, we have farms?
There's a little pen
patch
besides
next to you, yeah.
And then if you kill enough more of that enemy, that egg will hatch. And then you can take a mini version of that enemy in with you. And slime, by the way, that's the one.
That's my baby. Every time I defeated one, I was like, single tier, we should be besties.
Yeah,
like,
and you can
choose love, not war.
And it paralyzes enemies for you.
Does the egg come as like a drop from killing one?
Yes, it's a drop.
Does it look like an egg or does it look like something else?
It looks like an egg.
Okay, because I got some weird item from a slime once, but I didn't really super look like an egg unless it's just egg-shaped but red and has like a hole in the middle of it.
I didn't notice when I got the first couple eggs. I just noticed that I had like a pen full of potential familiars.
Oh, they go to the pen?
Yeah, they go automatically to the pen.
Okay, so you don't have to carry them
that
around.
solves Lindsay's question then, probably.
Yeah. And you can't
maybe I have an egg and don't realize it. I should check on that after.
And I want a baby slime more than anything in this world.
Oh,
You've said this, and now I'm like dreaming of my beautiful child that I'll bring with me into my dungeon crawls.
The other thing is that we haven't mentioned that you're not only building and upgrading your shop, you're actually building and upgrading a whole town around this.
Yes.
Around the, like, there is something so, not cynical, but something so real about how you're kind of building a cottage industry around this portal to hell, and you're kind of building a whole little tourist town around, like, there's a version of this game that's very cynical where you are playing as not just the, like, gold miner, the prospector, you're also playing the pickaxe salesman, right? And the economics of a portal to hell and like how that can build a whole town and like you and it's
rebuild though, because they give you at the beginning this town used to exist and has dwindled since because they shut down the dungeons. This isn't how this started.
It's like a beach town. It really is like,
you're rebuilding the town. Like, that's why I didn't get the cynicism, because I was going, oh my God, like, I'm bringing it back to how it was for, like, my grandfather, my father, like, the people who came before me.
It really actually kind of bothered me as well, just in a slightly different way, in that we are the ones that have to pay for other shops to come in. Why do I have to pay for, like,
Lindsay's
a potion maker
No, it's so true,
to arrive in the town?
You're investing in these shops to bring them in, but you're not getting a kickback.
No, you're not. One
did
of
want
them's
to
even like a rival store to you.
Yeah,
like, what the hell?
And you bring him into town, and he's like, "Oh, thank you. Well, I'll be interested to see what you do."
It reminds me of in Animal Crossing when you like are putting your bells, which is your money, toward building, like, I don't know, a bridge or something, and then it shows the contributions of everyone in the town who
and it's
contribute
like
to
0,
it.
0, 0,
Well,
10.
it'd be like you'd put in like 2 million bells, and then it'd be like a random squirrel puts in like 200, and everyone's like giving themselves a round of applause, like, good job, team. And I'm like, what team? That's the vibe I got
on my back.
Felt good investing in other businesses, though. I felt like a member of the community, you know?
I just,
Fair
again,
enough.
like, for me, I was going with that, not sob story exactly, but like the backstory you're given, where it's like, you are in a kind of failing town that you were born in and grew up in and like want to restore. So I was doing it very much from that kind of angle.
Well, I mean, we could talk about Moonlighter forever. I didn't even bring up the ghost. But, Wolfie, would you recommend Moonlighter?
Yes, in fact, I'm going to be continuing to play this to try to get a lovely slime pet once this is done, and I recommend everyone else do the same.
Hell yeah. Yasmin?
100% recommend, especially for any freaks like me who are like, I've always dreamed of owning a shop without ever wanting a brick and mortar one. Also, seconding the slime pet. Also, can you get like a baby golem? Like, can I have a little rock following me around and chilling? Oh
sure.
my God. Yeah. Oh my God. Jamie just nodded. I'm going to be playing this game for the rest of my life. And Jamie, your recommendations?
Oh, unquestionably. Like, this game rocks. This is, like, it's a great game. I do have to put a caveat that the game was literally unplayable on all of my devices. And so, you know, if anybody, I've seen that problem online. Other people have described.
Is
like,
it iOS specific then?
I don't know.
Like,
that's
again,
what I'm assuming.
I mean, refresher for the listeners. I'm Google Pixel 7a, and Lindsay is long phone I don't know the name of.
Yes,
flips.
it's the
flippy
Galaxy
guy.
Z Flip 4.
Thank you.
And I'm on an old iPhone 13 mini.
I think it says a lot about how much you enjoyed the game that you persisted through that glitch and bought it on
I would say
Switch.
that's an even stronger recommendation. Yeah,
exactly.
Dude, it broke my heart. Like, I was thinking, like, oh my God, we're gonna have to strike this episode. We can't do Moonlighter. I couldn't even take that. So I'm so glad that I was the only person that experienced this. I did see it online. Like, I'm not the only person in the world, but nobody else I've talked to personally has had the problem. So with that caveat in mind, full recommendation.
Without that caveat, or I guess with it, if you don't have an iOS device, this is like a perfect mobile game. Like, we've discussed this a bit, but like the touch controls work fantastically.
Yep.
The auto attack is fantastic. Like, all of the way that this is ported over, it is such a satisfying experience. So if you are not an Apple user, I would highly recommend trying the mobile version for this through the Netflix library as opposed to doing the Switch route.
Yeah, it's a capital R, capital G real game, and we love to see it. All right, so now we're going to take a quick break and then head over to the B-side for some more recommendations. All right, so for today's B-sides, Lindsay and I have independently both come up with the same gimmick, which is weird. So Lindsay and I will both be doing a couple movies, and Yasmin will be doing
A movie.
a single movie. Oh, you only brought one?
Only one.
Okay, that's cool.
I know,
that's fine. That is the minimum that we require. So.
Can I still sit at the table for lunch?
Yeah, you can sit at the big kids table. All right, so Lindsay, why don't you tell us about your two movies?
Okay, so this week I watched two movies, the reason I wanted to talk about two movies is because they have almost the same name and they have almost the same premise. They're not very similar movies in execution, but the similarities between them, I just couldn't choose which one to talk about. So I'm like, why not both? So the two movies that I watched were Triangle and
Woo!
Yes, woo indeed.
Never heard of it.
And Triangle of Sadness.
Heard of it.
Tentative woo, because I haven't seen it.
So let's start with Triangle first. Triangle is a 2009 psychological horror sci-fi film written and directed by Christopher Smith. It's about a single mother who goes on a boat trip with friends, and when they're forced to abandon their yacht due to a mysterious storm, they come across a seemingly abandoned ocean liner where the strange happenings begin to ramp up.
Well, that sounds awesome.
It's awesome.
So sexy.
And Triangle of Sadness is a 2022 satirical black comedy drama film directed by Ruben Ostlund. It's about a model and influencer couple who are invited to a luxury cruise ship populated by out-of-touch wealthy guests who fight for their survival when a storm hits.
Cool.
We got ships, we got storms. What more could you want?
The two movies, they obviously both have boats in common. Their names are very similar. They both have an aspect of survival after a storm. So on the surface, they seem similar, but they're actually pretty different from each other in terms of like their themes. Triangle is kind of a Sisyphean struggle about punishment, and Triangle of Sadness is an unhinged social commentary about wealth, basically. Both great movies, though.
Which did you prefer?
So that's an interesting question. I think Triangle of Sadness is the objectively better movie, but I had more fun watching Triangle.
100%.
For what reason?
I'm a sucker for horror movies, first of all.
Sure.
Second, I don't want to give away too much about the plot, but there was just some really interesting stuff that went down after they got into that ocean liner, and it was just really fun to watch. Triangle of Sadness was difficult to watch in an uncomfortable kind of cringy way, but it was still a really good movie. I just had a lot of fun with Triangle.
I will say, not to hijack Lindsay's review, but Triangle is fantastic. Everyone should watch it. I am like a horror head, and I was surprised multiple times when I watched it. This is a couple of years ago, but like that doesn't happen that often. So highly recommend. What I am here today, of my own volition, to, I don't know if I can say recommend, is Sur la Seine, Under Paris, which is Netflix's latest French language venture, and it is about a shark that comes to live in the river under Paris, and, you know, the natural consequences of that when a triathlon is supposed to happen in that same river.
Okay.
You know how Sharknado was, like, fun in the sense that we were all like, haha, this is funny, but actually unwatchable?
Sure. Yeah.
This is watchable, which is shocking for a movie with this premise. Also, the sharks. So there's an actual human lesbian couple. One of them's unbearable, student environmental activist, you know the type. They buried that gay and I was glad. But the sharks, arguably also lesbian. This is my Pride Month film, is what I'm saying here. Parthenogenesis, so all of the sharks are females and they just reproduce on their own and there are no male sharks, which is arguably very gay. Also just cute. Like, the thing that doesn't quite hold up is like the CGI on the sharks is very like, you know, when Netflix is like, we've greenlit this, we kind of regret it, we're cutting your budget a little bit. We've got a little bit of that going on, but it's sharks in Paris, in the Seine. The reason that we even get involved with this shark is that the oceanographer whose husband and entire team were killed by this shark is now a tour guide in Paris, and her shark reoccurs in the Seine. So like your
Jaws
intro
4.
was already exactly.
Yeah.
The mayor's also the jawsiest mayor since Jaws. Like sentences like at one point she's talking about the environmental work that they've done on the river, and somebody's like, we hear that there's rumors of sharks in this river, and she goes, if there's sharks, that's just evidence we've done a great job. It's great for the sharks too. And we're like, girl,
I mean, it's not a bad
please
point.
assess what you are saying.
So this was a B movie, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
100%. 4 stars out of 5 for clarity, not out of 10. Everyone, well, again, I don't know if I can recommend it, but I had a fantastic time. Jamie, you have the same thing as Lindsay with different movies.
It's weirdly close, even like the structure of it. So I watched 2 movies about suffering.
Woo!
Yeah! And they both took very different approaches to the central theme of just what do you do when there's just no hope. So the first movie was an older movie. It's from 2009, I believe. Coen Brothers. It's called A Serious Man. It stars Michael Stuhlbarg as a physics professor. I think it takes place in the 1950s, and it's very, very heavily inspired by the story of Job. So,
Ooh.
the story of Job is, I believe, the devil and God get into a competition to see if they could break this man's faith.
So the argument is, God, the devil's like, God, show me your bravest soldier. I'm not going to articulate that well, but I think it's
That's
funnier
basically it,
that
yeah.
way. And God's like, it's this guy. And the devil's like, I bet you I can get him to break faith with you. And God's like, no matter what you do, he will not break faith with me. And the devil says, bet.
So A Serious Man follows Michael Stuhlbarg as this physics professor, and his wife is leaving him, and he's up for tenure, but like he's getting blackmailed, and he just wants to be a good man. He just wants to do the right thing, and everything's going wrong, and he's just so simple in his sorrow and confusion, and he keeps turning back to his faith. He keeps trying to meet higher and higher level rabbis, and they have no interest in speaking to him, and it's a story about grace in suffering, and it's a black comedy. It's the Coen brothers, so it's kind of like a fuck this guy, let's see how bad we can make it for him, and like
That's how the Bible story also goes.
that is how the Bible story actually also goes. So the Old Testament, the Hebrew, the Jewish God is so present in this movie in the way that it is. The Hebrew God is is in the Bible. You can feel his presence. You can feel his judgment. You can feel his hand on the effects, but no matter how much you reach out for him, he's not going to reply. And all you have to do is show faith and devotion. And the central theme of this movie becomes that when you suffer and there's nowhere to turn, when there's no hope, it keeps using a line from the Jefferson Airplane song, like when all hope is lost and there's nowhere to... Anyway, the moral is, hold on to yourself, hold on to your principles, and stand with grace. And it's not going to fix anything. It's not going to solve the problem, but just do it. That's what God says, right? And so it's just a movie about like this almost a stoic approach to your life falling apart. Great performances. The cast, really quick. Michael Stuhlbarg as the lead. Richard Kind is his brother who has like a cyst on the back of his neck and lives on his couch. Fred Melamed as Cy Abelman, the man sleeping with his wife, who keeps hugging him and telling him that they're friends.
Ooh.
And Simon Helberg plays a young rabbi who's obsessed with the parking lot. This is a pre-Big Bang Theory Simon Helberg. He's awesome.
You were saying so many names I don't know. Who is Simon Helberg in The Big Bang Theory? Will this give me a...
the kind of unfortunate Jewish stereotype. He's the guy with the turtleneck who loves Star Trek.
Howard?
Howard, that's his name. Yeah.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
So, the other movie about suffering I watched was Furiosa, a Mad Max story directed by the guy who makes Mad Max, the Happy Feet guy. It's a prequel to Fury Road. It is like the Silmarillion to the Mad Max's Lord of the Rings. It is the movie that was cut out of Fury Road. So where Fury Road would just show you like all these crazy characters and like everybody, there's so much weight and backstory to the world, but they don't tell you any of it. You just can feel it. This movie gives you all the backstory and tells you who these characters are, who's the bullet farmer, who's the people eater, Morton Joe in his prime. That's all great. I saw it in the theater and there were people beside me who were like Mad Max heads in a way I didn't know people were. Like there'd be a cameo and they go, it was cool seeing a Morton Joe like as a younger person, but like I'm not really in it for that. What I'm in it for, what everyone's in Mad Max for, is crazy visuals and weird freaks. And this delivers. The freaks are out on display. They're doing crazy stuff.
Is there a guy freakier than Guitar Guy in Fury Road?
No.
Okay, because that's kind of the metric by which I judge freaks at this point, so
this movie doesn't stand up super well against Fury Road. Like, Fury Road was such an achievement. It was such a statement. This movie is more of a movie set in the world of Fury Road. It's not like,
gotcha.
The cliche with Fury Road is that single car chase, propulsive, never stops. Like, it really is thematically like Mad Max, a movie from Mad Max. This movie has like characters and like motivations and plot and
all
like,
those things we
slow
forgot
moments.
about.
But of course, thematically, it's another movie about complete hopelessness, unending suffering, cruelty to your fellow person. And its theme is just, if the world goes crazy, then go as crazy as you can and like enjoy it. And special shout out to Chris Hemsworth wearing a fake nose, looking like Dr. Robotnik through the whole movie as Dementus. He is awesome in it.
He's really gotten up to some things.
Oh, dude. And again, he's wearing a huge, like, weird fake. He's hilarious.
Is it like Weird Nose the way that what's his name? Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, yep. I mean, listen, there's not as many unfortunate implications in this one, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just, again, I judge all the freaks by the guitar guy. I judge all fake noses by Bradley Cooper's incredibly terrible decision making.
It's great time. It's a great time. Just go in there. My buddy had some hot dogs in a thermos that we all enjoyed, and it was just an ideal movie watching experience. So grab your thermos dogs and go out and see Furiosa.
So Jamie,
a Mad Max story.
Bad pun incoming, but prepare yourself.
Yeah.
Did you suffer through these movies, or would you recommend them? And which one would you recommend more?
I think in terms of like a statement, I think A Serious Man is a more successful artistic expression. I think it really does have kind of something to say, and it really is out there. Furiosa is an entertainment product. It's just a very, very good one.
Mm-hmm.
I also had a Hemsworth in one of my movies, except it was Liam Hemsworth.
Really?
Yes, really. He was in Triangle.
He's in I saw Triangle. Which bitch is he in Triangle?
He's the one, I think he was the one that was supposed to be 18 and looked nothing like an 18-year-old.
Oh,
let me just double check that.
The ship boy. The ship boy. Wow, a Hemsworth in my horror movie.
Funny enough, I was watching that movie with my boyfriend, and he was like, that guy's kind of attractive. And I'm like, he has a Hemsworthy look to him. And I was like, I looked at the credits after. I'm like, that's probably why.
Secondary Hemsworth. Interesting.
How many are there? Does anyone know?
Not enough. Maybe more. All right. On that note, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Be sure to catch us next week when we'll be playing Paper Trail. And Yasmin, do you want to read us Netflix's description of Paper Trail?
Absolutely. Solve puzzles and explore cozy places around a foldable paper world in this enchanting game about growing up. Long-lost secrets and other wonders await.
I can't wait. I played a little bit of this game already. It is so cute. Really looking forward to it. So we'll be back next week with Paper Trail. See you then.
See you soon.
The Netflix Gaming Club is produced by Big Bad Audio and engineered by Andrew Blythe. The show is hosted by myself, Lindsay Burak, James Carlisle, and Yasmin Thomas. We'd like to thank the High Loves for the use of our theme song, Sure of It. Check them out wherever you listen to music. As always, if you like what you hear and want to help us grow, please rate us on Apple or Spotify. Or if you're not into public displays of affection, you can always tell a friend or find someone to play these games with, and we'll be here for you after you do. Special thanks to Rob Schulte, Wendy Pretty, and the Netflix Gamers Discord community.